The Valari Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. They were tall creatures with silver scales that shined like metal. They had 4 eyes that glowed in the dark. Their teeth were sharp. Their claws were sharper. They had conquered 100 worlds and destroyed any species that did not bow before them. Queen Saralan sat on her throne made from bones. She was 800 years old. She had never lost a war. She had never shown weakness. Every species in the galaxy feared her name. When humans first appeared on the galactic stage, the Valari laughed. These soft creatures came from a small blue world called Earth. They had no scales, no claws, no natural weapons. They were weak and short-lived. Most humans died before they reached 100 years old. The Valari sent a message to Earth. The message was simple. Serve us or die. The humans sent back 2 words. Come try. The war began on a Tuesday morning. Daniel Cole was 17 years old when the Valari burned Chicago. He was sitting in his classroom when the sky turned orange. The teacher told everyone to get under their desks. Daniel ran to the window instead. He watched the alien ships descend from the clouds. He watched buildings fall. He watched people run and scream and die. His mother worked in downtown Chicago. She never came home. Daniel did not cry that day. Something inside him went cold and hard. Something that would never warm again. He enlisted on his 18th birthday. The recruitment officer looked at his thin arms and young face. She asked him why he wanted to fight. Daniel looked at her with eyes that had already seen too much. Because someone has to, he said. Basic training was hard. Many young soldiers quit in the first week. Daniel did not quit. He trained harder than anyone else. He ran until his legs gave out. He shot until his fingers bled. He studied Valari tactics until he could predict their moves before they made them. His drill sergeant was a woman named Patricia Hayes. She had been fighting the Valari for 3 years. She had scars on her face and a metal hand where her real one used to be. One night she found Daniel in the gym. It was past midnight. He was punching a bag over and over. His knuckles were raw and bleeding. You should rest, she told him. I will rest when they are all dead. Daniel said. Patricia watched him for a long moment. Then she said something he would never forget. Hate will keep you alive, soldier. But it will also eat you from the inside. You need to find something else to fight for. Daniel stopped punching. He looked at her. Like what? Like the people next to you. The ones who are still alive. Fight for them. Daniel thought about her words for a long time. His first battle came 6 months later. A Valari raiding party had attacked a colony on Mars. Daniel was part of the rescue team. He was scared. His hands were shaking. But he did not run. The Valari were faster and stronger than any human. Their armor could stop most bullets. Their weapons could burn through steel. Every soldier knew that fighting a Valari one-on-one meant death. But humans did not fight one-on-one. They fought in teams. They used tactics and traps and tricks. They fought dirty because fighting clean meant dying. Daniel killed his first Valari that day. It was a young warrior, barely older than him. The alien had been wounded by a grenade. Daniel found it trying to crawl away. Their eyes met. The Valari hissed something in its own language. Daniel pulled the trigger. He did not feel proud. He did not feel happy. He felt empty. But the colony was saved. 47 civilians survived because of what he and his team had done. That night, Daniel sat alone and stared at his hands. These are the hands of a killer now, he thought. He wondered if his mother would still recognize him. The years passed. The war continued. Daniel fought on a dozen worlds. He saw friends die beside him. He saw cities burn. He saw things that would give most people nightmares for life. But he kept fighting. He kept surviving. By the time he was 25, he had earned a reputation. The Valari had started to fear a human soldier who seemed impossible to kill. They called him the Grey Wolf because of the color of his armor and because he hunted in the shadows. Daniel did not like the name. He did not like being famous. Fame attracted attention. Attention got people killed, but he could not stop the stories from spreading. The soldier who had killed 3 Valari war princes. The man who had survived the massacre at Titan Station. The ghost who appeared behind enemy lines and left only bodies. When he was 28, the Valari did something they had never done before. They asked for peace. General Laura Vance called Daniel to her office. She was 60 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been fighting this war since before Daniel was born. They want to negotiate, she said. And they specifically asked for you. Daniel frowned. Why me? Because you scared them. The general leaned back in her chair. You have killed 3 of their immortal princes. Their soldiers tell stories about you. They think you are some kind of demon. I am just a man. I know that. You know that. But they do not know that. And that fear is valuable. She handed him a folder. Inside were details about the Valari flagship. The Throne of Silence. Queen Saralan would be there personally. You will represent humanity at these talks, the general said. You will show them what we are. Daniel looked at the folder. What are we? Laura Vance smiled. It was not a happy smile. We are the species that refuse to die. We are the species that turn their war machines into scrap metal. We are the thing they cannot understand. She paused. And you are the proof of that. Daniel accepted the mission. He had no choice. If there was a chance to end this war, he had to take it. The night before he left, he visited the memorial wall. It stretched for 2 kilometers. Every name was a human who had died fighting the Valari. Thousands upon thousands of names carved in black stone. Daniel found the names he was looking for. His mother. His first squad. His best friend from training. I'm going to meet the queen, he whispered to them. I am going to look her in the eyes. And I am going to make sure she knows exactly what she has done. He touched the cold stone one last time. Then he turned and walked toward his ship. The stars were waiting. The shuttle was small and quiet. Daniel sat alone in the passenger bay. Through the window, he could see the Valari flagship growing larger and larger. The Throne of Silence was massive. It stretched 17 kilometers from front to back. The ship was made of black stone and crystal. It looked like a cathedral floating in space. It looked like something built by gods. Daniel had destroyed Valari ships before. Cruisers, destroyers, even a battleship once. But he had never seen anything like this. The flagship was in a class of its own. His pilot was a young woman named Carla Mendez. She had been quiet for most of the flight. But now she spoke through the intercom. That thing is huge, she said. Her voice was tight with fear. I have seen bigger. Daniel lied. No, you have not. He smiled. It was a small smile. The first one in weeks. No, I have not. The docking bay swallowed their shuttle like a whale swallowing a fish. Armed Valari soldiers waited for them. They stood in perfect rows. Their armor glowed with blue light. Their weapons were aimed at the shuttle door. Daniel stood up. He checked his uniform one last time. He was wearing the formal dress of a human military officer. Dark blue with silver buttons. No armor, no weapons. That was part of the deal. He felt naked without his gear. But he kept his face calm. The shuttle door opened. Daniel walked out alone. The Valari soldiers were tall. Each one was at least 7 feet. Their silver scales reflected the light. Their 4 eyes watched Daniel with cold interest. A Valari officer stepped forward. He was bigger than the others. His scales were darker. His voice was deep and rough. You are the one called the Grey Wolf, he said. It was not a question. Daniel nodded. I am. You are smaller than I expected. People keep telling me that the officer studied him for a long moment. Then he turned and began walking. Follow me. The Queen is waiting. Daniel followed. The corridors of the flagship were wide and tall. The walls were lined with trophies. Daniel saw skulls of creatures he did not recognize. He saw flags and weapons and artifacts from 100 conquered worlds. Each one was a reminder of Valari power. Each one was a warning. But Daniel had seen worse things than skulls. He had seen what the Valari did to living people. He kept walking. They passed through a massive door into the throne room. Daniel stopped breathing for a moment. The room was vast. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of Valari nobles sat in galleries along the walls. They wore robes of silk and gold. They whispered to each other as Daniel entered. At the far end of the room was a throne made from bones. And on that throne sat Queen Sarah-Lynn. She was beautiful in a terrible way. Her scales were pure silver. They seemed to glow with inner light. Her 4 eyes were deep purple, like bruises. She wore a crown of black crystal. She did not move as Daniel approached. She simply watched. Like a snake watching a mouse, Daniel walked toward her. He kept his pace steady. He did not look at the guards or the nobles. He looked only at the Queen. He stopped 20 feet from the throne. That was as close as the guards would allow. Silence filled the room. Everyone waited. Queen Sarah-Lynn spoke first. Her voice was strange. It had layers, like many voices speaking at once. It was designed by nature to make other creatures feel small. So, she said, "You are the human they call the Grey Wolf." "That is what they call me," Daniel agreed. "You killed my nephew, Prince Varath. He was young, foolish, but he was blood of my blood." Daniel remembered Prince Varath. The prince had ordered the destruction of a hospital ship, 400 wounded soldiers, 200 nurses and doctors, all burned alive. "He died quickly," Daniel said. "That is more mercy than he showed my people." The nobles gasped. No one spoke to the Queen like this. No one dared. But Sarah-Lynn did not look angry. She looked interested. "You do not fear me," she said. "I have seen too much to fear anymore," Daniel replied. The Queen leaned forward slightly. Her 4 eyes narrowed. "I have ruled for 800 years. I have crushed empires. I have made gods kneel. And you stand before me like an equal. I stand before you like a man who has nothing left to lose." Sarah-Lynn smiled. Her teeth were very white and very sharp. "That is what makes you dangerous. A creature with nothing to lose is a creature that cannot be controlled." She raised one clawed hand. A servant appeared with a goblet of dark liquid. The Queen drank slowly. She never took her eyes off Daniel. "You will be given quarters on this ship," she said finally. "Tomorrow we will discuss terms of peace. Tonight you will join my court for dinner. They wish to see the human who has caused us so much trouble." Daniel bowed his head slightly. "As you wish, Your Majesty." 2 guards escorted him from the throne room. The nobles watched him go. Their whispers followed him like shadows. His quarters were in a tower near the center of the ship. The room was large and cold. The walls were smooth black stone. There was a bed but no blankets. There was a window that looked out into the endless dark of space. His armor case had been delivered ahead of him. It sat in the corner. Daniel looked at it for a long time. Tomorrow he would need it. Tomorrow he would face the Queen and her court. But tonight he was alone with his thoughts. He walked to the window. Stars filled the view. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there were the people he was fighting for. A young Valari servant brought food. Daniel did not eat it. He did not trust Valari food. He had brought his own supplies. The servant hesitated at the door. "You are different from what I expected," he said. Daniel looked at him. The servant was young. His scales were still soft and pale. He had probably never seen combat. "What did you expect?" Daniel asked. "A monster." "The stories say you are a demon who drinks Valari blood." Daniel almost laughed. "I am just a man. A tired man who wants this war to end." The servant nodded slowly. Then he left. Daniel lay down on the hard bed. He stared at the ceiling. Sleep would not come easy tonight. It never did before important missions. He thought about everyone who had died, so he could be here. He thought about the names on the memorial wall. He thought about his mother. Tomorrow he would face the Queen again. Tomorrow he would negotiate for the future of his species. But tonight he was just Daniel Cole, a boy from Chicago who had grown up too fast. A soldier who had killed too many. A man who carried the weight of the dead on his shoulders. He closed his eyes. The darkness wrapped around him like a blanket. Outside the window, the stars kept shining. Cold and distant and uncaring. The war was not over yet. Morning came slowly on the Valari flagship. There was no sun to mark the hours. Only clocks and schedules set by the ship's systems. Daniel woke before the alarm. He had slept for only 3 hours. His body was used to functioning on little rest. The war had trained him well. He stood and stretched. His muscles were tight. His joints cracked. He was only 28, but his body felt older. Years of combat had taken their toll. A knock came at the door. Daniel opened it. A young Valari attendant stood in the corridor. His scales were pale green. His 4 eyes blinked nervously. "I am Kiris," the attendant said. "I have been assigned to serve you during your stay." Daniel nodded. "Come in." Kiris entered. He was carrying a package wrapped in silk. He held it out to Daniel with both hands. "The Queen has sent ceremonial garments," Kiris said. "You are expected to wear them during negotiations." Daniel looked at the package. He did not touch it. "What kind of garments?" "Traditional Valari robes. They are a sign of respect. All visitors to the Queen wear them." Daniel shook his head. "I will wear my own armor." Kiris looked confused. "But that is not customary. The Queen will be offended. I am not here to follow customs. I am here to represent my people. And my people do not wear Valari robes." The attendant hesitated. He seemed unsure what to do. No one had ever refused the Queen's gift before. "I will inform the court," Kiris finally said. He bowed and left quickly. Daniel waited until the door closed. Then he walked to the corner where his armor case sat. The case was made of reinforced steel. It was scratched and dented from years of use. Daniel entered the code, and the locks clicked open. Inside lay his armor. The Mark V tactical suit was gray like storm clouds. It was not pretty. It was not elegant. It was built for one purpose only: survival. The chest plate had a hole that had been patched twice. A Valari blade had gone through it on Titan Station. Daniel still had the scar. The left arm guard was newer. The original had been melted by plasma fire and CALLISTO. The helmet had cracks that had been filled with sealant. A prince of the Valari had tried to crush Daniel's skull with his bare hands. The prince had failed. The prince was dead now. Every piece of armor told a story. Every scratch and dent was a battle survived. Daniel removed his shirt and began the ritual of putting on the armor. He had done this thousands of times. His hands moved without thinking. First the underlayer, then the leg guards, then the chest piece. He was reaching for the back plate when the door opened. Daniel turned his head. Queen Saralin stood in the doorway. She was flanked by 2 royal guards. Their weapons were drawn, but they were not pointed at Daniel. The Queen had simply arrived without warning. She had come to inspect the human envoy herself. The Valari did not understand human privacy. They did not knock. They did not wait. They entered wherever they wished. Sir Alan had expected to find Daniel waiting nervously. She had expected to see him in the robe she had sent. She had expected to intimidate him before the negotiations began. Instead, she saw something else. She saw his back. Daniel was facing away from her. His shirt was off. His armor was half on, and his back was completely exposed. The Queen stopped breathing. Daniel's back was not the back of a normal man. It was a landscape of horror. Scars covered every inch of skin. Some were thin and white. Others were thick and red. Burn scars twisted across his shoulders. Knife wounds lined his spine. There were marks from chemicals, and marks from claws and marks from weapons. That had no name. The flesh had been destroyed and rebuilt so many times that it barely looked human anymore. But that was not what froze the Queen in place. Between the scars, covering every space of skin that remained, were words, names, tattooed in simple black ink. Katie Moore, Nathan Price, Christopher Dunn, Ryan Ortega, Maria Santos, Kevin Park, Lisa Young, Andrew Clark. Row after row, column after column. Names of the dead written on the skin of the living. Sir Alan had lived for 800 years. She had conquered worlds. She had destroyed entire species. She had seen warriors from 100 different races. She had never seen anything like this. Her guards shifted uncomfortably. They did not know what they were looking at, but they could feel something wrong. Something that made their scales itch. Daniel slowly turned around. His face showed no surprise, no embarrassment, no fear. "Your Majesty," he said calmly. "You could have knocked." Sir Alan did not respond. She could not. Her voice had abandoned her. Her 4 eyes were fixed on those names. So many names. She tried to count them, but there were too many. "What is this?" She finally whispered. Daniel looked at her. "These are my dead. I do not understand." Daniel picked up his chest plate. He held it in his hands but did not put it on. "Every name on my back is someone who died beside me. Someone I failed to save. Someone I could not protect. You carry them with you," Sir Alan said. "On your skin. Yes. Why?" "Because someone has to remember them." Daniel's voice was quiet but hard. They were fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, friends and lovers. They had names and faces and dreams, and they died fighting your war. Sir Alan took a step forward. Her guards tensed, but she waved them back. "How many names?" she asked. 140-3. The number hung in the air like smoke. Sir Alan looked at Daniel's face. She was searching for something. Weakness, madness, anything she could understand. She found only cold determination. "You were damaged," she said slowly. "Broken. These scars should have killed you." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "They should have. How are you still alive?" Daniel met her eyes. His gray eyes against her purple ones, because dying would mean forgetting them. "And I will never forget." The Queen stood perfectly still. For the first time in centuries, her expression showed something other than power and cruelty. It showed shock. It showed confusion. And beneath those, buried so deep that even she could barely feel it, was the first seed of something new. Fear. Daniel finished putting on his armor. The gray plates covered his scars. The names disappeared beneath metal. But Sir Alan knew they were still there. She would never be able to unsee them. "I will be ready for negotiations in 1 hour," Daniel said. He pulled on his gloves. His voice was calm, professional. "I suggest Your Majesty prepare your terms." Sir Alan looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without a word. Her guards followed. The door closed. Daniel stood alone in his quarters. His armor was complete. His face was a mask of stone. But if anyone had been close enough to see, They might have noticed something strange. His hands were shaking just slightly, just for a moment. Then he took a breath, and the shaking stopped. And he was the Grey Wolf again. The negotiations would begin soon, and the Queen had already learned her first lesson. Humans were not the weak creatures she had thought. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that remembered, and that memory made them impossible to break. The negotiation chamber was smaller than the throne room. A long table made of black glass sat in the center. Valari officials lined one side. A single chair waited on the other. Daniel entered alone. His gray armor seemed dull against the crystal walls. But every Valari in the room watched him like he was a bomb about to explode. Word had spread through the ship. The Queen had visited the humans' quarters. The Queen had seen something that disturbed her. No one knew exactly what, but rumors flew like birds. Daniel sat in his chair. He placed his hands flat on the table. He waited. The Valari officials whispered among themselves. They were nervous. Daniel could see it in the way their scales shifted color. Valari changed color when they were stressed. These officials were practically glowing. A door opened at the far end of the chamber. Queen Saralan entered. She had changed clothes since their morning encounter. She now wore armor of her own. Black metal covered her body. A crown of crystal sat on her head. She looked ready for battle, but her eyes were different. Daniel noticed it immediately. Something in them had changed. The cold certainty was still there, but there was a crack in it now. A small crack, like a spider web on glass. She sat at the head of the table. Her officials fell silent. "Let us begin," she said. The negotiations were complex. Land boundaries, trade agreements, prisoner exchanges, reparations for destroyed colonies. Each point was debated and discussed. Daniel held his ground on every issue. When the Valari pushed, he pushed back harder. When they threatened, he reminded them why they were asking for peace in the first place. The hours passed slowly. Finally, late in the afternoon, they reached the most difficult topic. The Valari wanted to keep 3 human colony worlds. They called it security. Daniel called it theft. "These worlds belong to humanity," Daniel said. "Your forces invaded them, killed our people, burned our cities. Now you want to keep them as a prize." The senior Valari official was an old male named Korath. His scales were dull with age. His voice was sharp with anger. "The cost of this war has been great," Korath said. "The Valari have lost ships and soldiers. We deserve compensation." "You started this war," Daniel replied. "You attacked us without cause. You killed millions of innocent people. And you want compensation?" Korath's 4 eyes narrowed. "You are a soldier, human. You know nothing of politics. These matters are beyond your understanding." Daniel leaned forward. "I understand this. My species was living in peace. We had no quarrel with the Valari. We did not even know you existed. And then your ships appeared in our skies and started killing us. That is the way of the galaxy," Korath said. "The strong take from the weak. It has always been so." Daniel smiled. It was not a kind smile. "And how has that worked out for you?" The room went very quiet. Korath's scales flushed with anger. But before he could speak, Queen Saralan raised her hand. "Leave us," she said. The officials looked confused. "Your Majesty? I wish to speak with the human alone. Everyone out." Now. The officials obeyed. They filed out of the chamber in nervous silence. The doors closed behind them. Daniel and Saralan were alone. The Queen stood up. She walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned like distant fires. "I have been thinking," she said, "about what I saw this morning." Daniel did not respond. He waited. 143 names. The Queen continued. "You carry them on your skin. You wake up every morning and see them in the mirror. You feel them against your armor. She turned to face him. Why would any creature do this to themselves? Daniel considered his answer. You would not understand. Try me. He stood up. He walked to the window and stood beside her. They looked out at the stars together. Do you know what makes humans different from other species? Daniel asked. Saralyn tilted her head. Your weakness? Your short lives? Your soft skin? Our memory. The Queen frowned. All species have memory, not like us. Daniel's voice was quiet. Other species remember facts, dates, events. Humans remember feelings. We remember the sound of our mother's voice, the smell of our childhood home, the way it felt to hold someone we loved for the last time. Saralyn was silent. Every name on my back is a person I knew. Daniel continued. Not just a soldier, a person. Ryan Ortega used to sing old songs when we marched. Maria Santos could fix any engine with nothing but wire and hope. Kevin Park was afraid of the dark, but he still ran into burning buildings to save civilians. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand. Daniel turned to face her. You see humans as weak, as fragile, as easy to break. But you do not understand what gives us strength. And what is that? We remember everything. Every loss. Every death. Every friend who died in our arms. And instead of breaking us, those memories make us stronger. They remind us why we fight. They remind us that we cannot give up. Because giving up means all those deaths were meaningless. The Queen was very still. Her 4 eyes studied Daniel's face. You are saying that grief makes you powerful. I'm saying that love does. We love the people we lost. And that love does not disappear when they die. It transforms. It becomes something harder, something sharper, something that cannot be defeated. Saralyn turned back to the window. The stars reflected in her purple eyes. My species does not grieve like yours, she said slowly. When Valari die, we honor them once and move forward. We do not carry them with us. We believe it makes us weak. Does it? The Queen did not answer for a long moment. I have lived for 800 years, she finally said. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen species that burned with passion destroy themselves. I always believed that strength came from leaving the past behind. And now I have met a man who carries 143 names on his back. And he frightens me more than any enemy I have ever faced. Daniel nodded slowly. Good. Saralyn looked at him sharply. Good? You should be frightened. Because I am not special. Every human soldier carries names like mine. Maybe not on their skin, but in their hearts, in their memories. Millions of us, all connected by the people we have lost. The Queen was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. Her voice was different now, softer, almost tired. You will have your colony worlds back, she said. All 3 of them. And we will pay reparations for the damage we caused. Daniel blinked. That was easier than he had expected. Why? He asked. Because I finally understand what we have been fighting. Saralyn walked back to the table. She sat down heavily. And I know now that we cannot win. You could have won, Daniel said. If you had struck harder, faster, before we had time to organize, perhaps. But we did not. And now it is too late. She looked up at him. Your species has transformed. The war made you into something new. Something that cannot be broken because it does not forget. Daniel sat down across from her. So this is real peace? Not just a pause? It is real. Saralyn's eyes met his. I give you my word as Queen. The war is over. Daniel studied her face. He was looking for deception, for tricks. He found only exhaustion, and something that might have been respect. Then let us finish these negotiations, he said. I want to go home. The Queen nodded. Yes, I imagine. You have many graves to visit. Daniel did not respond, but his hand touched his chest plate. Beneath the metal, the names waited. 143 promises he would keep forever. The negotiations lasted 3 more days. Every detail was argued. Every word was examined. Both sides fought for advantages, large and small. But in the end, the treaty was signed. The Valari would withdraw from all human space. They would return every prisoner of war. They would pay reparations for the colonies they had destroyed. And they would recognize humanity as an equal power in the galaxy. It was a victory beyond anything humans had dreamed possible. When the news reached Earth, people danced in the streets. Soldiers cried with relief. Families who had been separated for years began making plans to reunite. Daniel watched none of it. He was still aboard the throne of silence, waiting for his shuttle. On the final morning, a messenger arrived at his quarters. The Queen wished to see him. Privately, Daniel followed the messenger through corridors he now knew well. The ship felt different. The guards no longer watched him with hostility. Instead, they watched him with something close to respect, or maybe fear. The Queen's private chambers were at the top of the highest tower. The room was circular. The walls were made entirely of glass. Stars surrounded them on all sides. Saralin stood at the window. She was not wearing her crown. She was not wearing her armor. She was dressed in simple robes. She looked smaller somehow. Older. She turned when Daniel entered. You came. You summoned me, Daniel said. It seemed rude to refuse. The Queen smiled. It was a strange expression on her face. Humans have customs of politeness. My species does not. We say what we think. We take what we want. And how has that worked out for you? Saralin laughed. It was a bitter sound. Badly. It has worked out badly. She walked toward him. I have been a queen for 800 years, Daniel Cole. I have made decisions that shaped the fate of billions. But I have never been more uncertain than I am now. Uncertain about what? About everything? She stopped in front of him. 3 days ago, I believed the Valari were the greatest power in the galaxy. I believed humans were insects to be crushed. I believed strength came from conquest and dominance. And now? Now I do not know what to believe. Daniel studied her face. For the first time since meeting her, she looked almost human. Tired, confused, searching for answers. May I tell you something? He asked. Speak. I have been fighting your species for 10 years. I have killed hundreds of your soldiers. I have destroyed your ships. I have watched my friends die screaming. Daniel paused. And not once, until today, did I think of the Valari as anything other than monsters. What changed? You did. Daniel took a step closer. When you looked at my back, when you saw the names, something in your eyes changed. You stopped seeing me as an enemy. You started seeing me as a person. Saralin was silent. That is rare, Daniel continued. Most creatures cannot do that. They see enemies forever. They carry hate until it destroys them. But you looked at my pain and you felt something. I felt fear. Saralin said quietly. You felt more than fear. Daniel shook his head. You felt recognition. You understood, for one moment, what it meant to be human. What it meant to love and lose and keep fighting anyway. The Queen turned away. She walked back to the window. When I was young, she said slowly, I had a brother. His name was Varric. He was killed in battle before I became queen. I mourned him for one day, as is our custom. Then I locked those feelings away and never spoke of him again. Daniel waited. I have not thought of Varric in 700 years. Saralin's voice was barely a whisper. But when I saw those names on your back, I thought of him. I wondered if anyone still remembered his name. Daniel walked to stand beside her. Through the glass, he could see his shuttle waiting in the docking bay below. His ride home. I cannot promise the universe will be kind, he said. I cannot promise there will not be more wars, more death, more suffering. But I can promise you this. What? Humans will remember. We will remember the war. We will remember the dead. And we will remember this moment. When two enemies stood together and chose peace instead of destruction, Saralan looked at him. Her purple eyes were wet. Do Valori cry? Daniel did not know. My people will think I am weak, she said. They will say I surrendered to lesser beings. Let them say it. Daniel's voice was firm. True strength is not about conquest. True strength is about knowing when to stop fighting, when to choose a different path. The queen was quiet for a long time. Then she reached up and removed something from around her neck. A pendant on a thin chain. The pendant was a small piece of crystal with a name carved into it. Varric, she said. My brother's name. I have worn this for 800 years, hidden beneath my robes. She held it out to Daniel. I want you to have it. Daniel hesitated. I cannot take this. You can. And you will. Saralan pressed it into his hand. Add it to your collection. One more name. One more memory. Let my brother be remembered alongside your fallen. Daniel looked at the pendant. The crystal glowed faintly in his palm. He closed his fingers around it. I will remember him, Daniel said. I promise. Saralan nodded. Then go home, Grey Wolf. Go back to your people. Tell them what happened here. What had happened here. The queen smiled. Her teeth were still sharp, but the smile was almost warm. Something new, she said. Something that has never happened before. A Valari queen and a human soldier found something in common. And what is that? We both learned that the galaxy is bigger than we thought. And maybe, just maybe, there are better ways to live than by conquest alone. Daniel bowed his head. Goodbye, Your Majesty. Goodbye, Daniel Cole. He turned and walked toward the door. His footsteps echoed in the empty chamber. Grey Wolf, he stopped. He did not turn around. Thank you, Saralan said, for showing me those names, for making me remember what I had forgotten. Daniel did not respond. He did not need to. He walked out of the chamber and made his way to the docking bay. The shuttle was waiting. Carla Mendez was in the pilot's seat. Her face broke into a grin when she saw him. Ready to go home, sir? Daniel climbed into the passenger seat. He buckled his harness. The pendant was still in his hand. Yes, he said. I am ready. The shuttle lifted off. It flew out of the docking bay and into open space. Behind them, the throne of silence grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dark shape against the stars. Daniel looked at the pendant one last time. Then he opened a small compartment in his armor and placed it inside. Safe, protected. Remembered. One more name. One more promise. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace. Stars stretched into lines of light. And Daniel Cole, the Grey Wolf, the man with 143 names on his back, closed his eyes. He dreamed of home. He dreamed of the memorial wall. The names stretched on forever. But now, at the very end, there was a new section. A small plaque in a different language. Varric of the Valari. Remembered by humanity. In his dream. Daniel smiled. The war was over. The dead were not forgotten. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, a queen sat alone in her chamber and thought about a brother she had loved 800 years ago. For the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to grieve. And in that grief, she found something she had thought lost forever. Hope.